Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's open information session on Tangent's popular postgraduate certificate in creative and cultural entrepreneurship. My name is Hazel, and I will be your host for this evening's session. Delighted to see so many of you have registered to attend this evening and have joined us so far. So we'll kick off shortly with this evening's session, which will hopefully provide you with a taste of what the in-class experience is like with ourselves in Tangent Trinity's Ideas Workspace. And we will also be discussing how to apply and hopefully answering some of your burning questions around securing a place on this course. You're all very welcome once again to this open evening session on our creative and cultural entrepreneurship program, which this year for the first time is running in Kilkenny and also in Trinity in Dublin. We're delighted this year to be partnering with Design and Crafts Council of Design and Crafts Council Ireland, should I say, to deliver this course in Kilkenny. And we will kick off shortly. Excellent. So we might kick off, and first of all, let me give our panel a very warm welcome today, or our guest speakers rather. We are joined by Jess Hayden, who is an academic partner of Tangent Trinity's Ideas Workspace, and also a lead academic partner here for ourselves. You're very welcome, Jess. We're also joined by Jane Flanagan, who many of you may have been speaking to already, our student recruitment officer, who is here to advise you on what makes a good application and how to improve your chances of securing a place on this programme. You're very welcome, Jane. And we are also delighted to be joined by Rosemary Steen, the CEO of Design and Crafts Council Ireland. Rosemary is leading the partnership between ourselves and the DCCI to deliver this programme in Kilkenny, and I believe we have a number of people applying in that region here with us this evening, so great to see a regional spread. So I must advise before we kick off that the closing date is fast approaching. It's just 2 weeks away, and the course may close in advance of this date because we offer places on a rolling basis. So this means that you might find out if you've been successful in your application in advance of that date too, but early application is advised to avoid disappointment. Brilliant. So Rosemary, I might come to you first and just ask you to provide a bit of more information around the partnership and what it means.
Oh, look, it's just so exciting. I'm seeing all the names coming in. So this is a really exciting, even historic opportunity for Kilkenny. So firstly, just to explain a little bit about the Design and Crafts Council, because I can see we have some members here, but some people who mightn't be familiar. So we're the national agency for craft and design in Ireland. We support designers and makers to develop their businesses in a sustainable way and advocate for the societal benefits of craft and design. And that means we're basically encouraging people to make and also to get into careers in design. So we're very proactive. Our activities are funded by the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment via Enterprise Ireland, which is our kind of mother agency. And we currently have about 64 member organisations in our guilds and associations and over 3,500 registered clients, Hazel, which would be a combination of designers and craftspeople. So we were thrilled. I suppose one of the benefits of being a national agency is we get the opportunity to meet a lot of people. And so I had a very exciting meeting with the team in Tangent in Trinity. And I thought it was an amazing opportunity to bring Trinity back to Kilkenny. We do have some very long historical links, but Trinity really is doing some very exciting things through Tangent, and the opportunity to bring a level 9 course in Kilkenny, and we hope we'll be able to run some of the classes from part of our premises at some point. It really is amazing for craftspeople. So we're delighted to be involved, Hazel, and I'm really looking forward. I can't believe the attendance this evening, so I do think people need to go really quickly to get their applications. It looks like you're going to be oversubscribed, and that's really great.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that welcome word, Rosemary. And just to second that, a very warm welcome to all of our Kilkenny attendees tonight. So excellent. Thank you for that, Rosemary. So yes, this is a relatively rare opportunity. We haven't run it in that region before. It's also, of course, available to undertake on Trinity's historic campus. We're based in Trinity Centre for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and obviously favourably positioned as the leading university for student entrepreneurship in Ireland. And I suppose this is also an opportunity to receive a qualification, a level 9 qualification that's Springboard funded. So Jane will speak to that a bit later on, but it means you get a level 9 qualification. You earn a level 9 qualification from Ireland's leading university for just over €300 if you're eligible and employed, and potentially free if you're unemployed and eligible. So a bargain too, I think you could say, Rosemary. So excellent. All right, brilliant. So we'll move on now to Jess, and Jess will provide you with a very quick whistle-stop tour into content that you might cover on this course, and what a class might look like. So we'll hand over to yourself.
Great, thanks, Hazel, and lovely to be here with you this evening, and great that you're already spending your evenings thinking about furthering your education. So I'm Jess, I'm an organisational psychologist, and I work with Trinity on a number of different programmes, and I have done now for, I think nearly 5 years. So what we do on this programme is really, I suppose there's kind of 3 big parts to it, which are represented by 3 modules. But there's an overarching theme across the whole thing, which is that to really get your head it's experiential, and what that means is that the way we design everything is that you roll up your sleeves and you get involved in applying tools, in applying evidence-based practice from day one, literally from day one. So it's a really great opportunity this time because we're in person, which we haven't been for a number of years. So that's a fabulous way for us to be able to teach it, but also for you to build networks, and to have that amazing thing that we try and get, this concept of scenius, like a creative collaboration, scenius, where everybody is creating together and pushing boundaries together. So that's what it's for. I'm going to show you a short presentation just to give you an idea of what specifically module 1 looks like, because I think in module 1 we're trying to set you up with some tools, some mindsets, and a community. The class becomes a community in module 1 that sets you up then for the whole program. And it is a commitment, it's 2 evenings a week, and that is a commitment. But I think there's never a dull moment on this program because you're always busy, you're always doing something and applying something. So I'm going to show you a little presentation now, and that will give you a bit of an idea of what we will cover. I have to apologize, I'm recovering from a cold and it has impacted my voice, so I'm so sorry about that, but hopefully it's not too great. So you should be able to see my screen now, and I'm going to talk I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about the first module, which is creativity and innovation. And this is, I suppose, a special area of interest for me from a research perspective as a psychologist, because I'm very interested in what it takes for people to think differently about problems that we're facing. I'm also very interested in doing firsts and people being a first in a sector. So I'm very focused on inclusion and how we can solve problems together in an inclusive way. So we'll talk a little bit maybe about my background. That's me in better days when I don't have a cold. But I suppose how I came into this was by, I was about, God, 7 years ago now. I'm imagining I was sat somewhere like you are now. Maybe I had an idea for something, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. I wanted to start my own business. I thought it could work. I thought there was a market for what I wanted to do, but I lacked confidence, and I lacked a plan, I think. And the timing was a little bit off as well. And a couple of things changed for me. I got exposure to different ideas, different ways of trying to execute what I was doing. And here I am, 7 years later, and I've run a successful business now for 6 years, which has grown every year. And the business that I run provides innovation and creativity training across Ireland, the UK, and Germany, and so on. But I remember what it was like before I took the leap. And I think it's a really, if you're dialing in tonight because you're curious, if you've got a little what if in your head somewhere, what if I will manage to do this? This is the place to explore that what if, absolutely, 100%. And myself and my colleagues who would be teaching the program, I'd be teaching some of it with you, and my colleague Claire and Lucy as well would be teaching in different elements. We all get it because we all run our own businesses, and we all understand that creating a kind of a culture where you can, like a community in the class where you can test out ideas, is half the battle. And I find once you say your idea out loud to somebody, then it might actually happen, So I already mentioned this. We have the chance to be in person again this year, which is fabulous. Work is so much easier, especially creative work, and critiquing stuff is so much easier, I think, when we're in person. We'll mostly be in real life. We will do, I think, one session online. And the reason we want to do that is to give you access to some online tools that are really, really helpful to get your head around them if you're not used to working online. Like, the reality is, if you have an idea for a business or a venture of some sort, you're probably going to have to collaborate with a team online at some point in order to realize it. And so we want you to get comfortable with a couple of really great tools that can help you to do that. So that's the main reason we'll do 1 week of your program online in the first module. So I was actually just in Kilkenny. If there's people calling in from Kilkenny last week, teaching a workshop, and I just, every time I go to the city, I fall in love with it over again. It's really great, and I just think there's so much potential as well for different ideas. So I can't wait to hear what ideas people might have. But this is what the journey will look like in your first module, in your first few weeks. You'll start, and we'll spend that kind of first week really trying for you to get to know each other. I've mentioned community quite a few times. It's very important to us that we create an inclusive community in the classroom. And there's a really strong evidence base for that. It's not just a nice to have. The evidence tells us that inclusive communities solve problems in a way that's more sustainable. They're more creative in their approach to problems, and they'll attempt to address greater problems than a non-inclusive community. They're braver, and they tend to stay the course, even through thick and thin challenges that are experienced. And the thing with entrepreneurship is, if you're going to set something up, there are going to be challenges, and that's the reality of it. But there's also going to be really great moments as well. And what we like to do is try and create a community where everybody celebrates when one person is successful. That's what we're trying to do in those first few weeks. So we spend a lot of time with you getting to know each other. Then we'll explore some concepts together around creativity, like what is it and where can it be applied. What I absolutely love about this is when we get people from a particular sector, like the creative sector or the cultural sector, and you might see an issue somewhere else and you want to have a go at solving that. Brilliant. Let's see where we get to in the course of the module. We'll also talk about different types of innovation, and specifically we'll focus on inclusive innovation. We see a lot of mainstream innovation. We'll talk about that as well, where we're creating a product for an already served market. But we'll talk about the possibilities of inclusive innovation, where we're looking to solve a problem for a group that isn't well represented, and how that can actually be a driver of creating equality. So there's all sorts of really exciting and world-changing topics that we'll explore in that first week. And we'll also start forming teams. We'll start getting people into groups that you'll work in then to start generating ideas together, solving problems together. So that's week 1. Then we'll get to start thinking about a project that you're going to work on the following week. And for this, we'll introduce you to a concept called design thinking. It might be very familiar to some of you and not to others. I think the brilliant thing about design thinking is that it's a process that allows you to potentially tackle any problem in a structured way. And even if you've used it before, I think you can always go deeper. I'm learning every time I apply it with my clients. There's some new facet to it that I'll learn or hone my practice in some way. For those of you as well, that it might be an entirely new concept, great, fresh eyes and fresh thinking are always brilliant. And it's a brilliant tool for approaching innovation. So where we want to create a change, design thinking will put the people we're trying to create change for at the center of the process. And there's lots of brilliant tools in it around empathizing with their end user, understanding their journey, what they're trying to achieve, and designing solutions for them that will actually work. So that's week 2, because there's a lot in it, isn't there? And all of this, you'll be the style of teaching that we use. We'll introduce a concept quite quickly, and then we'll say, okay, go and do it. And in a really low risk way, right? You're not going to be asked to kind of, pitch to the Taoiseach or something, but in a low risk and a low key way, we'll get you to apply it straight away. And that builds confidence really, really quickly. And it also shows us where there's incredible experience or competence in the class that we can then build on, and we can use that in the community that we're trying to build in the class. Then on to week 3, you'll work with your group to explore different sectors that you'd like to tackle a challenge in. And this can get really exciting because it gets real, it's real world stuff, and you're thinking, okay, I have these tools now and I'm going to try to apply them to a real world thing. We'll start with stakeholders. We'll start with who is it that's impacted by this issue right now, and who is it that we want to learn more about. We're going to give you loads of tools for trying to engage with them, understand their perspective, and really understand what it's like for them to experience the issue, not what it's like for you to experience it from a different perspective. That's mentally challenging. That not from at the end of that session, I think people are usually pretty tired because it's psychologically expensive to be jumping in and out of different perspectives. As artists and creative people, I'm sure you're well used to doing that. But it is, especially doing that with a group where you've to work collaboratively and inclusively. It is it's tiring, but it's really enjoyable and it's really worthwhile as well. So then after that, we'll kind of, you'll do some work in between those 2 weeks where you'll be gathering information, and you'll pool all the data together that you've gathered from your different stakeholders, and you'll develop insights based on those perspectives. And so those first kind of those 3 weeks will be spent really in the problem. We'll actually ask you not to come up with any solutions at all until I think it's week 4 or 5. And that can be really uncomfortable for some people, and that's part of the process, is staying with the problem until you know enough about it that you have a better chance than luck of finding a valid solution. And so then we'll kind of do a sprint then in the following week where you define the problem and you start working on ideas. That's lots of fun. We use a bunch of different tools and creative techniques to get people thinking divergently. So looking beyond the obvious kind of solutions and coming up with what might appear at first to be kind of wacky ideas, but actually there's something in them, and little tiny facets of an idea can be developed into something that is genuinely world-changing and groundbreaking. That's very exciting for us. So that you'll do that in your team. In that week, where are we? We're week 5 now. Then in week 6, you'll develop a prototype and you'll get some feedback, and you'll start working on a final presentation. And then in your last week, you'll deliver that presentation to a panel of judges. And what we want you to kind of deliver in that is what is your idea, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and how do those two things fit. So it's a bit of a journey. It feels, I think, fast-paced. You're working on this stuff every single evening that you'll be with us in the class. There's kind of no room for people to sit on their hands here. There's lots of room to think, don't get me wrong. There's loads of room to think and talk and discuss and critique, but it's very active. And I make this point because if you can't kind of commit to the evenings and being there and turning up and doing the work, it's really, really, really hard to stay on top of what you need to stay on top of for this program. Things move pretty fast in this module. And at the end of that module, you'll deliver a kind of a final group report and an individual reflection. So by the end of this, our aim as facilitators of your learning is to be able to actually walk away and have a community of people who could, if they wanted, go on themselves to solve problems together. That's what we're trying to achieve. And I think we do a pretty good job at that most times, where people feel like I found people that I can actually call now, talk about an issue that I might be facing in my business or something that's preventing me from setting up. And I feel like I have the confidence to do that. And after this module, then you'll move on to develop another idea in module 2, and you'll look more at the business side of it, and you look more at costings and stuff like that. And this side of it is really just the problem solution fit of creativity and innovation. And then your final module, you'll talk about career pathways and exploring that as well. So yeah, some of the activities that we'll do, we'll explore a lot about creativity and innovation and what it is. And I think as well, the responsibility that we have, where if we're going to make a change or create a new product or do something, that we're doing that in an inclusive way, in a way that's mindful within planetary limits and that kind of stuff. We'll talk quite a bit about the impact of climate on business as well, and on innovation and entrepreneurship. We'll create team charters and logos, so you'll have lots of different tools that you'll be able to use then when you're building your own teams, that are really valuable. We'll talk a lot about values, because we understand that values drive behavior, and that can be a really insightful thing for you to understand when you're building your business. We'll build personas, so ideas of customers or people that we'd like to solve problems for, that help us kind of think about them and have them front and center. Stakeholder mapping, we'll do journey maps as well. We'll do problem mapping to try and understand the root causes of problems. And this can be especially useful when we're looking at complex societal issues. And most of the stuff that does come up when we work with people in the creative and cultural spaces, like, they're never simple problems, right? They're never issues that, or they're never just like one-faceted ideas that people have. There's often multifaceted, complex ways of thinking and multiple perspectives that we need to consider in this space. We'll do a lot on interviewing and shadowing and body storming. Body storming is that idea that you can actually try and experiment to feel what it might be like to be a person that experiences something, and in that way that gives you a kind of an insight into their mind and be able to design better solutions for them. We'll do a lot on ideation and brainstorming, prototyping, I already mentioned that, and also pitching and presenting as well. And that one of the things that you'll have throughout the whole program is you'll develop an ability to have difficult conversations. Like, collaboration is necessary for creativity and innovation and entrepreneurship. And in order to collaborate properly, you have to have kind of awkward, difficult conversations to figure out, well, what is it that person wants? Here are my needs and how they need to be met, and how can we find a way to make this all work? So you'll have lots of opportunities to try that out, but it will also give you lots of tools as well. So I mentioned a little bit already about our approach, like highly experiential. We use a lot of learning games and exercises and experiments. And the reason we do that is because there's really strong evidence that adults learn better through playfulness. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with that concept. but it works, you know. And so we're always pushing ourselves to find new inventive ways to get people experiencing something in a playful manner, in a safe manner. And you know, we try and keep the risk low so that you can try stuff out. And if you don't get it right, that's fine. You haven't got it right yet. You will get it right, you know, if you keep trying. And so that experiential side of it is really strong. Also, everything that we kind of cover, there's an evidence base for. If there's a tool that we're suggesting, or a piece of research, or a way of researching something, there'll be a good evidence base for it, and we'll provide kind of. We also encourage like critique of those things. We want you to form your own opinion on what works, because you're the only one that knows your context, right? You're the expert in that. What we'll bring are the tools and the process and all the evidence, and then you need to decide how you're going to use that to further your ideas. And then finally, you know, we're reflective. As I said, like there'll be space for thinking and discussing and critiquing, and that stuff works so much better in person. So we definitely want people to be able to build insights into their work. And a key thing for any entrepreneur is to know when something isn't going to work. And the only way you can do that is to give yourself the time to reflect and really listen. Like, actually, I've spoken to 9 people now, and 8 of them didn't really get the idea. Something's wrong. What's going on? And we build that space in for reflection as well, to really kind of think about, what does this mean? What are we trying to achieve? Do we need to reposition something? Do we need to rethink it? And so on. So hopefully that sounds appealing. You know, there's just to give you an idea of what the assessments kind of look like, there's always an individual aspect to it, something that you do on your own. And that probably will be some empathy work, like trying to do a stakeholder interview or something like that. Then there's the group work that you'll do. And for module 1, that looks like a pitch presentation and a report. And then finally, there's always a reflective piece of work as well. So just writing about your experience, the insights that you've had, what you've learned, and how you can kind of bring that forward to your own context and your own ideas. So yeah, I'm going to finish up shortly, but I suppose I think this would be a great program for somebody if you wanted to bring really effective evidence-based problem-solving techniques into your working life. You know, if you want to kind of challenge yourself, push yourself a little bit in terms of collaborating with others, you know, pushing your comfort zone out a bit, so as you're learning more, bringing in different perspectives and backgrounds, and really trying to fine-tune how you work with others. Great decision to do this program. If you want to create an inclusive culture around an inspiring idea, I think that's where our sweet spot is in terms of what we're trying to do with this program, because we know inclusive cultures create better ideas. If you want to change your perspective on how you look at the world, or listen to others, hear other perspectives, if you want to help change systems that aren't working for us anymore, and if you want to have a bit of fun, this would be a great program for you. So I'm going to leave it there now and hand back over to Hazel, I think.
Excellent, Jess. Wonderful. Thanks so much for that, and for being so generous with your time when you're under the weather as well. Sign me up, that last slide. I don't know anyone who wouldn't be interested in that, irrespective of their discipline. So thank you so much for that. And excellent. So next we are going to move on to Student Recruitment Officer Jane, who will bring you through the ins and outs of nailing your application and hopefully getting a place on the course. So Jane, over to you.
Thanks very much, Hazel. And yeah, great listening to you, Jess, as always. And unfortunately, my bit is the slightly less exciting, more practical side, but nonetheless really worthwhile and not too encumbersome, I think you'll find. But I'm just going to share my screen with you, and I'll take you through a few slides. Okay. So the very first thing then, okay, Jess has kind of covered it here, but just a few notes on what the course offers you. Well, it offers you a level 9 on the National Framework of Qualifications from Trinity College Dublin. A unique combination of transferable and entrepreneurial skills, presentation and communication skills, teamwork and leadership skills, access to networking opportunities with potential collaborators, mentors and investors, skills to start up or develop a business, a range of career supports within Trinity, and professional one-to-one project mentorship. How the programme works, again, just to cover off some of the basics, it runs from the 18th of January 2023 right through to the 22nd of June, and it's on 2 evenings a week, Wednesdays and Thursdays, 6 to 9. The 3 modules, as Jess described, well, the first one is creativity and innovation, that's in person, then followed by creative and cultural enterprise development online, and then following that, career pathways in person again. Teaching and learning styles, well, we're all about experiential adult learning here in Tangent. So as Jess very clearly said, it's very kind of hands-on workshops, masterclasses, group projects, presentations. You'll work on teams on industry projects hosted by private or public enterprise partners. You learn to apply creative and innovative problem-solving techniques in practice. You'll begin to understand the iterative process, learning from failure and failing forward. And then the peer-to-peer learning and those assignments that Jess mentioned, that's your assessment. So there are no other exams beyond those 4 assignments per module. Getting on to the admissions documents. So in order to apply, and it's really important, I guess, to try to get your application in as soon as possible, because we do offer places on an ongoing rolling basis to applicants. So you just need to upload a copy of your level 8 honours degree if you have that. If not, you upload a copy of the highest qualification you do have, and we can assess you either as a standard applicant or an RPL, which is recognition of prior learning. So you can learn more about that on our webpage or give us a shout here at springboard@tcd.ie. You need to upload a copy of your CV so we can see how your skills and experience align with the course. And then a statement or an expression of interest. That's really just about 500 words about why you want to do the course, what you hope to achieve from completing the course, and then 2 references. So it's important that these are 2 written references. We say 1 academic and 1 professional, and that's great if that's possible. Otherwise, 2 professional is fine, but they should speak to your suitability for the course, ideally. And then, as I say, once those 5 documents are uploaded to the Springboard website, we send out provisional offers on an ongoing rolling basis. The closing date is the 8th of November, as Hazel said at the top of the call, and that may close earlier if the course becomes oversubscribed. So again, if you apply as soon as possible, it gives me and my colleagues a chance to review the application, reach out if there's anything missing, or or if not, we can assess you pretty quickly and give you the outcome of your application, as I say, fairly quickly as well. And then we get on to the eligibility piece. If you get a provisional offer of a place on this course, we'll then reach out afterwards and we'll ask you to upload documents to prove that you're eligible for that Springboard funding. So again, you don't need to worry about these right now. It's if you get a provisional offer, you at the beginning when you go on to Springboard, you'll sign a declaration that says you're eligible. And to be eligible, you need to be a full-time resident in the Republic of Ireland and have a valid PPS number. If you're not Irish or you're international student or person, then just proof of passport or your visa. You need to show that you've been a resident in the EU for 3 of the last 5 years, and that's if you're in employment. And then if you're unemployed, then and you're in receipt of a qualifying Department of Social Welfare payment, we just need to see evidence of that. Again, for self-employed, you would pay a 10% fee, which is €312.50 for this course. So very specific, 312.5. That's paid when you're registering as a student for Trinity College, and only applicable if you're in any kind of employment. If you are in receipt of that qualifying DSP payment, then the course is completely free. And then finally, if you're a returner, so a returner is somebody that is out of the traditional workplace for 9 of the last 12 months. They're not in receipt of any payment, but they sign a declaration to say that they haven't been working for at least 9 of the last 12 months. So finally, just things to consider. Are you eligible? The eligibility criteria is all listed on the Springboard website. It's very clear there. It's kind of what I just went through, but you can investigate it further on springboardcourses.ie/eligibility. Schedule, does it work for you? Due to the practical nature of the course and the group work, you know, we ask that students be there 100% of the time. The online classes may be recorded, but you still need to be there in real time because it is such a practical course. And in order to even pass a level 9 qualification, an 80% attendance rate minimum is required. But again, we try to ask students to be there 100% if possible. And then the in-person piece. So module 1 and 3 are in the Dublin region are in the Trinity Business School on campus with us in Tangent. And then in Kilkenny, we have the module 1 and 3 in the Design and Crafts Council of Ireland. And then finally, it's a postgraduate level academic program. It is level 9. There's report writing, presentations, and teamwork. So that's the kind of level to expect coming into the course. And that's really it for me. You may have questions, and I'm not sure if we will get through them all because there are so many of you on the call, which is so wonderful to see. It really is. But if we don't get to them tonight, happy to take any calls on that number there between 9 and 5, Monday to Friday, 086 032 0487. And also we're on Springboard at tcd.ie. The 2 links are there, but if you jump on to our webpage, which is tcd.ie/tangent, you'll find the links to apply in the postgraduate section of the education column. But again, there's 2 links. So just be mindful when you're on Springboard that you apply to the Dublin one or the Kilkenny one as appropriate to you. And that's really it from me. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jane. And hopefully that has answered the majority of everyone's questions. I will say we have a Springboard FAQs, hints, tips, tricks webpage on our website. You can also book a call back with Jane. Jane's details are there on screen also. And I see we have a number of questions. So the first one from Joseph says, can you give me some examples of the types of sectors that are accepted? So I think here you're asking around the types of students that we might see doing this program. And really it's a mixed bag, and what would give you a good flavour for the types of students who do this course is our recent alumni panel discussion, which is available to view on our website and also on our YouTube channel. And we had a podcaster, we had a creative writer, we had someone working in film, but that's not to discount people who work supporting the arts, so potentially in arts administration or craft. You know, in the case of DCCI, that's why it's such a kind of a natural, good fit in terms of that association. So a mixed bag. Jane, would you have anything to add there around the types of students who do this course?
Yeah, we have seen a wide range of students, and you know, the diversity on the course is really great for that peer-to-peer learning because you're all coming with your skill sets and work experience in your different sectors. But we've had tour guides, artists, sculptors, graphic designers, yoga teachers in some cases, but people, mainly actors, obviously poets, writers, musicians, people that are generally trying to work in the creative and cultural spaces. So yeah, a wide range.
Excellent. And then I see the follow-on question is, does Trinity hold IP, any intellectual property for projects developed or worked on in the course? For the Springboard courses, no, we do not. So that remains yours. So hopefully that's answered those questions, Aoife, or Joseph rather. So we have another question in from Aoife. In terms of workload and time spent on this course, how much time do you expect a student to spend on this? I understand it is 2 evenings a week, but in terms of course load, work after hours, etc. So I think as a general principle, we would say you get back what you put in, and that bears out here. Jane, would you be able to elaborate on that one?
Yeah, again, like you said, it's what you put in is what you get out of the course. Now it is part-time, so a lot of people that do apply do have full-time jobs, and it is doable alongside a full-time job. But you know, there's the 6 hours obviously of classes. You're going to be busier towards the end of modules for sure, because that's when the assignments are due. And it's very hard to put a number on it. But you know, Jess might be better to advise you on that one. But it could be anything from, you know, the 6 hours to 20 hours a week, depending. And then some weeks it it won't be so busy because, you know, you'll be at the beginnings of the modules and kind of just getting down and stuck into the topics.
Yeah, like we'll design, so there'll be some exercises that we'd like you to do. Let's say, for example, a stakeholder interview, and you'll have to do at least one of those for one of your assessments, but you might decide to do more than one. And this is similar to what kind of Jane and Hazel were saying. You get out what you put in. If you're working on an idea that you might actually progress in the real world afterwards, then you might find somebody's going to put loads of work in and outside of the classroom time, and then others may not be able to. They'll have other commitments that they need to address. So, but there's definitely an expectation that some work is done outside of class. And I think some of that will be stuff that you'll do on your own, and some of that will be meeting with your group as well to go through presentations or to write reports and stuff like that. And so it is hard to put a number on it, but there is an expectation that there is some work done outside of the classroom.
Very good, thank you for that. Next, I see we have a question from Valerie to say, can you give some examples of the professional referees? I don't work in the creative sector as my day job, and I think this is kind of, it's not exactly unique among some, you know, a cohort of applicants. They may be pivoting, or they may hope to make a passion a full-time job. So Jane, what might a professional reference look like in that case?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very flexible about where those references come from. You know, some people will have been out of the traditional workplace for a long time. So it is a requirement. We need everybody to be at the same level. So you do need those written references, but they can be from anybody you've ever worked with in any capacity. It doesn't have to be in a creative capacity. If you've worked on a volunteer committee for your local community or something like that, then somebody that you know in that space could write a reference for you. What we're trying to see in the reference is the referee should address maybe two questions. How do they know the individual, and would they recommend them for a place on the creative and cultural entrepreneurship course? So we're really just trying with those admission documents to see, does your experience and interest align with the course? Because we want you to get the most out of the course that you can and make sure that you're a good fit and all of that. So again, very flexible about where they come from, as long as they can speak to your suitability for the course.
Excellent, thank you for that, Jane. And then someone has a very specific question around whether a stamp 1G visa would be accepted.
Unfortunately not. So it's a stamp 4 for any international students. And again, there'll be a bit more information about that on the Springboard courses.ie website, but it needs to be a stamp 4 if you're an international student.
Okay, thank you for that. Building, I think, on the reference question, it's been a long time since my college days, so I'm wondering, for the academic reference, can it be somebody who is known to us from our work, or should we seek a former lecturer from some decades back?
Again, it can be two professional references. We say one academic and one professional, but two professional is absolutely fine.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that. Will you accept students who work outside of the arts industry? And I think we kind of grabbed that one with the question from someone who hopes to, by the sounds of things, move into the industry but doesn't have any traditional arts acumen, if you like. Excellent. And another attendee says, I have been out of formal education and have no degree. Is this course accessible to people like me, working in the arts many years? And Jane, this is a perfect example of someone who may be eligible to apply under our RPL policy. So can you just
Yeah, so the RPL policy is available for anybody that has any qualification under a level 8. So the level 8 is the standard 4-year undergraduate degree that some people have. So if you are applying as an RPL candidate, recognition of prior learning, just let us know what you have done in lieu of that level 8. Have you done professional courses? You know, have you a level 6 or a level 5, or, you know, anything that you've done? If you have evidence of that as well, like a certificate of completion, upload those, because you want, I suppose, your application to be as strong as possible. So demonstrate what you've done in terms of CPD, continuous professional development, in lieu of that level 8, and you'll absolutely be assessed. Can take a little bit longer to assess those candidates, but absolutely, there's always RPL candidates on all of our postgraduate courses.
And a recognition of prior learning applicant as well can draw upon the learning they've amassed through their work, so it doesn't necessarily need to be.
No, it's professional and then, as I say, accredited if they have that. So it's really just supporting your application with what you've been doing over the years, both in terms of education and professional work.
Brilliant. And that just reminds me too, I know from chatting to you, that sometimes people underestimate the power of their personal statement in helping their chances of securing a place. So could you speak a little bit around that?
Yeah, sure. So the personal statement, we do say only 500 words, and some people are very passionate and they can talk at length about what they've done, and it's wonderful to see everything they've done. So we're not really putting a strict limit on that. All I'd say is that when you're writing your statement, look to say why you want to do the course, and how your experience aligns with the course content, and what you hope. Maybe do you have a dream to open your own business, or do you want to get back to working in an arts center, or maybe you want to be a voiceover coach. I don't know, but whatever your plans are for the future, whatever dream you might have, let us know about that too, because then again we can see that you're a good fit for the course, and match up your experience with what we're looking for.
Wonderful. Okay. So we're nearly up on time, and thank you so much, everyone, for firstly coming, and secondly being so vocal in the group chat, because sometimes past a certain hour, especially on a Monday, we don't see such what's the word, Jane?
Engagement.
Engagement. There we go.